Hello everybody, I'm Miss Jessica from EVPL Oakland. Now previously I was at EVPL McCullough, but I have now moved to a different location so you can come and visit me there. And we are back for another exciting edition of our Chapter Book Storytime Variety Pack. Now if you are just joining us for the first time, we preview lots of different books and I read to you just a few chapters from the very beginning. And that's because there's so many books out there. It's so hard to know what to choose to read next that I'm trying to give you just a little bit of a preview so that you can decide if you want to keep going with that particular book. Okay, so before we get started, last time we were together, we spun our wheel and we landed on a spooky tale. Now, sometimes spooky tales are a little too much for us, and that is totally okay. So if you are not wanting to join us today for a spooky tale, that is okay. Tune in next week and we'll have something new and fun for you then. So this book, I saw it a while ago and the cover got me. And then the title was even better. So we are going to be reading today for our spooky book, The Collector. Now look at that cover. That is just a little bit terrifying. And it is by K.R. Alexander. And I love the back too. It says, "Never ever go by the house in the woods." So right there, that's very, very spooky to me. That's very creepy. And I kind of need to know what's going to happen in this book. Who's collecting? Are they collecting this doll? What is going on? What is happening? Okay, so let's see what the back says. Josie always liked visiting her grandmother's house, but when she's forced to move there, she starts to feel like something is a little off. Her grandmother has some very strange rules. 1, never leave your windows open after dark. 2, no dolls in the house. 3, never ever go by the house in the woods. A little spooked, Josie is relieved to find that her school seems pretty normal. She even manages to make friends with a popular girl named Vanessa. When Vanessa invites Josie back to her house to hang out, Josie doesn't question it. Not even when Vanessa takes her into the woods and down the old dirt road toward the very house her grandmother had warned her about. The house that has been calling for her. Ooh, this has already got some chills going up my spine. Okay, so whenever we're reading a book, we want it to be super enjoyable. It's actually a little hot right now because of the summertime, but normally I have a very snuggly blanket with me, and especially when I'm reading a spooky tale, but it's just a little too warm for that right now. And I also have some water near in case I need it. And my allergies are very much acting up, so I definitely have some tissues nearby just in case I need them. So we want to make sure our environment's very comfortable before we start reading. And here we go. For those who want to know what goes bump in the night. Ooh. Chapter 0. That's a new one. This was not how I wanted summer vacation to end. Driving with my mom and my sister through cornfields on our way to our grandmother's house. Not for a fun weekend visit, but for good. I was ready to be bored. I was ready to be lonely. But I wasn't ready to face off against an evil power that wanted me dead. Chapter 1. Do I get my own broom? Anna asked when we drove down Grandma Janine's driveway. Josie snores. I glared at her from my front seat. Sometimes my little sister could be such a pain. Yes, Anna, Mom said. You both get your own rooms. It's an upgrade, see? You need internet to get upgrades, I muttered, crossing my arms. Grandma Jeannie didn't have any internet service. My phone barely even worked out here. Josie, Mom began, but she didn't finish her warning. She'd already told me many times not to make a fuss because this was hard on everyone. Yeah, sure. She didn't have to start 6th grade at a new school in the middle of nowhere. Grandma's house came into view. It was huge, much bigger than our apartment in Chicago had been. This place had 3 whole stories with big windows on each side and a porch that wrapped all the way around. A big yard stretched out on all sides, and past the swing set and small apple orchard was a thick forest that looked like it was filled with brambles and secrets. Even now, on a warm evening, the trees looked dark and cold. The front door opened and Grandma Jeannie came out. She was shaky and leaned heavily on the screen door, but she was smiling. Even though I really didn't want to be here, seeing her made me smile too. It was rare to see her smile like she actually saw us. "Oh, my girls," she called when we got out of the car. She took a shaky step toward us. "I'm so happy you made it." Mom jogged up the steps to hug Grandma while Ann and I got our bags from the back of the car. There weren't many. Mom had shipped a few boxes ahead of us, and the rest of our life was in storage. "Hi, Grandma Jeannie," Anna said, running up to hug her. I was right behind. "Oh, my girls," Grandma said again. I looked at Mom. Her smile looked forced as she watched Grandma, but then Grandma looked back to Mom. "How was the drive, dear?" "It was fine, Mom. I think we're all a bit tired, though." "Well, then I have some sun tea in the kitchen. Why don't we have a drink out here before dinner?" Mom agreed and went inside to get the tea while Grandma led Ann and me to the patio table. "She's an old woman," Mom had reminded us a million times on the ride there. "Her memory's fading, and she might not always make sense. Just be patient with her and act like you know what she's talking about, even if you don't. That way she won't get too flustered." "Now, girls," Grandma Jeannie told us once we were settled, her voice a strong whisper, "there are 3 rules for living here. 1, never leave your windows open after dark, even if it's hot. 2, no dolls in the house. And 3, never, ever go by the house in the woods. That's where Beryl lives." She looked out to the forest when she said it. I stared too. It gave me a chill. Anything could be hiding out there. Whenever we'd visited before, she'd never let us out of her sight. But she'd never mentioned a house before, or Beryl. Who or what was Beryl? I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to upset her. It was clear from her eyes that it upset her enough just to say the name. "Don't worry, Grandma," I assured her, patting her arm. "We'll follow the rules." Mom came out and handed us the sun tea. I didn't really want it. I wanted soda. But Grandma Jeannie didn't have that, so I needed to get used to it now. Grandma and Mom talked about the drive for a bit. I tuned them out. I was trying to prepare myself for tomorrow, my first day at a new school in a new town. It made my stomach hurt to think about it. How was I going to find my way around? How would I make friends? What if the kids made fun of me because I wasn't from around here? I'd already stopped worrying about what Grandma had said. Her rules were strange, but that was just how things were here. The only thing I could do was follow along. I only tuned back in when Grandma started talking about Grandpa Tom. "He'll be right down, you know," Grandma said. "He'll be so happy to know you're here." Mom went quiet. Anna shot me a look. "Can you believe she said that? Look." Grandpa Tom had passed away 5 years ago. I barely remembered him. "Let's get you inside, Mom," our mother said. "I think maybe you could use a nap." "Tom will be so happy," Grandma continued. She let Mom help her up and guide her toward the house. Girls, could you get the rest of the bags?" Mom asked. She knew she just wanted to keep us busy. She hated seeing Grandma like this. It seemed to be happening more and more often. That was one reason we were here, to make sure Grandma wasn't in danger. Mom was worried she'd fall down the stairs or hurt herself. And when Mom lost her job, it made sense for us to come here. Or at least it made sense to the adults. It still didn't make sense to me. All we knew was that Grandma wasn't entirely with us anymore. Some days she was better than others, and we also knew not to go into the woods. As soon as Anna and I were a safe distance away heading to the car, while Mom led Grandma inside, Anna asked, "Do you think she's okay?" I shrugged. That was weird about Grandpa, right?" I shrugged again, wishing she'd get the hint that I didn't want to talk about it. But she went on, "Who do you think Beryl is?" "You ask too many questions," I replied. I started lugging the suitcases from the trunk while she grabbed another bag from the back seat. A breeze blew through the woods, and I heard a noise that sent another wave of chills down my back. I stopped what I was doing and I looked into the trees. Nothing moved. "What are you looking at?" Anna asked. I nearly jumped out on my skin. "Did you hear that?" I asked her. "What?" I looked away from the woods and back to her. "Nothing. Come on, let's get these inside." I didn't want to be out here any longer. That noise, I swore I heard an old woman laughing. Whoa. Chapter 2. "Josie?" Anna's voice was quiet, but since it came unexpectedly at me through the darkness of my room, it nearly made me scream. I was in bed staring at the moon out the window and still worrying about what tomorrow would be like. She was supposed to be asleep. We had school in the morning. "What do you want?" I grumbled. I sat up and looked at her. She was peering through the crack in my doorway. I could see her stuffed bear dangling from her hand. She didn't answer at first. Instead, she looked back as if she was worried that Mom was going to catch her. Then she stepped into the room and closed the door quietly behind her. "I was wondering if I could sleep in here," she asked. I groaned. My first night with a big room all to myself, and Anna was having nightmares again. "Anna, we already talked about your bad dreams." She shook her head before I finished my sentence, then crept up to my bed. "It's not dreams," she said. "I haven't even fallen asleep yet." Another groan from me. "We had that talk too. How sometimes when you dream, you don't think you're dreaming, but it still isn't real." Anna had a hard time distinguishing reality from dreams. Mom said I was just like her at that age, but I didn't believe it. "You're 7 years old," I said. "You're too big for bad dreams." "I wasn't dreaming!" she yelled. Then she slapped her hand to her mouth. Well, I shushed her. "Sorry," she whispered. "I said I wasn't dreaming. I heard something from the woods." That made me sit up straighter. Part of the reason I was still up was from thinking about school, but another part, a part I didn't want to admit, was that I couldn't stop hearing things from outside. Coyotes, I told myself, or owls. I'd watched enough nature documentaries to know that a lot of animals woke up at night to hunt, especially in the forest. The noises were natural, even if they were scary. "They're just animals," I said. "Animals don't laugh," she whispered back. "Some hyenas do, I knew. There weren't hyenas in Illinois." But she didn't need to know that. "They weren't animals," she replied. "I know it, and I think they were talking about us." I shivered. "Are you sure you weren't asleep?" I asked her. She shook her head again, her stuffed bear hugged tight. "Positive." "Fine." I rolled over and pulled back the covers for her. "But this is the last time. I still haven't forgiven you for telling Mom I snore." "But you do," Anna whispered. "You're like a train." I couldn't help it. I giggled. She could be so serious sometimes. Anna giggled too and curled over. "Good night, Josie," she said. "Good night, Anna. Don't let the bed bugs bite." "They won't bite me. I'll be too busily nibbling on you." I giggled again, but I didn't fall asleep right away. I lay there for a while listening as her breathing slowed down and occasionally snuffled. If anyone snored, it was her. I couldn't get what she'd said out of my head. I think they were talking about us. I knew it was stupid to believe her. She'd probably fallen asleep without knowing it and had slipped into a strange dream. But that didn't make me feel much better. I'd been hearing something all day too. Something from the woods. Something from one place, the one place we weren't supposed to go. And if it was calling to Anna too, that meant it was real. And it wanted us. Chapter 3. I knew it was a bad dream. I knew it was a bad dream because I wouldn't have walked into the woods on my own at night. Still, I could smell the sharp tang of crushed berries and sap, could hear the snap of branches under my feet and the howl of distant wind. I could feel the biting on cold on my skin. I could taste the fear in my throat as I walked. I didn't know why I was dreaming of the woods behind Grandma Jeannie's house. I didn't know why I wasn't waking up. I just knew I had to keep walking. If I stopped walking, she would find me. If she found me, I was dead. The woods were dark, but the moon above was full, so I couldn't see the faint path at my feet. Maybe I should go a different way. But no, if I did that, I'd get lost, and then she'd definitely find me. And I would definitely be dead. I had to keep moving, had to stay warm, had to find something. But what? Keep walking, keep walking. Something snapped behind me. A branch, a bone? I turned around. My heart was beating so loudly and fast I could hear it. A shadow moved between the trees, the flash of teeth, the glowing of white eyes. I ran and she ran after me. I could hear her now crashing through the trees, calling out my name, Josie, Josie. She was getting closer. I ran faster. Branches tore at my legs and hit my face, but I didn't stop. She was so close. I could hear her breath. I could smell her breath. I could feel her breath burning on the back of my neck. There, up ahead, through the trees, there was a light, a window, a house. Grandma Jeannie's. It had to be. She would keep me safe. Grandma Jeannie always kept us safe. I ran harder, and the creature behind me was howling now, howling and laughing like a wolf or a hyena or an old woman. It was so close to the light, to home. But when I burst through the trees, I knew I was wrong. It wasn't Grandma Jeannie's house. It was old, and the paint was peeling. The yard was overgrown and filled with broken statues. I didn't have time to care. I ran up the path to the front porch. The lights were on. Someone had to be home. I pounded on the front door. Please, I yelled, please let me in. She's coming for me. Please help. A shadow moved behind the curtain. The creature howled behind me. The door opened. I looked at the person who opened it, and it wasn't a person at all. It was a doll. A doll the same height as me, with blank eyes and a sad smile. Welcome home, Josie, she said. Before I could scream, before I could run, the doll's cold fingers wrapped around my wrist, and she yanked me inside. All right, that's the end of chapter 3, so we're gonna stop there. And I know that is a very exciting part. I mean, is she dreaming? Is this real? Is this a vision of something that's gonna happen later? And I'm gonna guess that this is the doll that she's dreaming about. Okay, so we're gonna stop there. And again, if you would like to pick this up, you can get it at several of our locations. We also have it available as an e-audiobook on Hoopla, and we also have it available as an audiobook, so the CDs that you can listen to. So we've got it in a few different formats. If you would like to come in to check it out at one of our locations, you are more than welcome to do that. You can put it on hold. You can use our curbside service. There are lots of different ways to keep going with this story. I know I'm going to, because I'm dying to know what's going to happen next, and I love spooky stories. So it is time for us to find out what we'll be reading next time. So we're going to get our wheel ready and see what we'll read next time when we're together. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so we're back, and we're going to be spinning our wheel to find out what we're going to read next time. So we just did spooky, and if we happen to land on that one again, we'll probably respin, because that's the whole point of this. We want to get some variety. So we also have mystery, realistic fiction, adventure, science fiction, historical fiction, humor, and fantasy. All right, here we go. Ooh, humor. We haven't had that one in a while. And I always love a really good funny book. Okay, so next time we're together, we'll be reading a book about a story that's very humorous and funny. Now, we are going to be doing something new with our chapter book variety pack, and I will be having a new friend join us to help us with reading some chapters. So we will be having Ellen from EVPL Oakland, and she will be joining us every other week to share some of her favorites and some new books that she's found that she is very, very excited about. So we will be switching off every other week. So next week, I will not be with you, but she will, which is awesome. I always love having new friends join us. And then in 2 weeks, you will see me again for a book that is humorous. And if you are interested in continuing our book that we just read today, don't forget there's lots of different ways to get that book on hold or to come in and see us and see what we would like to recommend for you, because we are always excited to tell you about new and wonderful titles for you to check out. All right, so I will see you next time when we're together. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm Miss Jessica from EVPL Oakland, and I will see you again soon. Bye.